Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Integrated Podcast. This episode is with director Alan Wolfe, writer and director of The Sound of Violet. We discuss that movie, but then also creativity and how his faith integrates with his work there in Hollywood. Hopefully you enjoy this one. It's a great conversation. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Integrated Podcast. We're so thankful that we have Alan Wolfe with us today. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'd like to know a little bit more about yourself. I know you're a filmmaker, a best-selling author. We're looking forward into diving into those subjects and how you got there and how you overcame some of those obstacles and knowing a little bit more about your life.
Yes.
So
I'm an open book.
So where was the interest for all of this that you're doing now? What piqued the interest to even start dabbling with the arts of either writing, filmmaking? Where was it? Was it childhood? Was it later in life?
I think it started at a pretty young age. I think telling stories was just a way that I was able to communicate with people. I started with marionette shows when I was quite young, and they were kind of complicated marionette shows. Like I remember one was about a woman who took in a guy that just got out of jail, and then she tried to frame him for robbing the store. And I was like in 6th grade, there's like a gun battle at the end of this marionette show. Like, I just don't know what people were thinking as they were watching it. But I remember she sets this warehouse on fire, and I put the iron on this cookie sheet with water so it would create steam to make it look like the warehouse is on fire. So those are the kind of shows I was doing as a kid.
Wow. So you're writing and producing these marionette shows as a 6th grader.
Yes.
What influenced you into this? Was it TV shows or was it?
I think it was Star Wars was the first, what really got me excited about telling stories. My first film was called The Adventures of Donald and Beth, and I named it after my aunt and uncle because he gave me my first movie camera. And I created a kind of an ice planet that was a lot like Hoth, from Empire Strikes Back. And just like ILM, I created it with flour. That's how they created the ice, planet. Except it took me a long time to film these scenes. I filmed it with Lego figures. That was my first film. And I created the set in the basement, and then it took me a long time to film it because it was all stop action. And then one day, my mom just put her finger on one of the coffee tables and found flour on her finger. And she said, "Alan, why is everything covered in flour?" And I realized that this beautiful set that I had built in the basement, the HVAC system had been sucking up the flour and just distributing it all over the house. So I had to quickly end that production. But yes, I was always
a great story.
So that one didn't go to theaters, didn't get released?
No, that one actually did get finished in my sophomore year of high school. I premiered my first 3 films.
What year was that? Your sophomore year?
That was 87.
1987.
Yes.
You had to be really creative to do that in 1987.
Yeah. And video was around, but I was a purist and I wanted to shoot on film. So everything I was doing was shot on Super 8 film.
I'll be honest. That sounds like more fun than AI.
Oh, right. Yes.
All the creativity. I think kids these days are just going to lose their creativity because computers are doing it for them.
Right, exactly.
So you're there, you're making scenes out of flour.
Right.
Flour.
Fun. What a great memory.
Moving a Lego piece just a little bit.
Yeah, 1/4 of an inch at a time.
Wow.
Yes. And we encourage our kids. I mean, our kids, I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they like making short films on the iPad. And they know about AI too, and how AI could actually do it in half the time, or no time at all. But we just encourage them, no, do it with your hands, do it from scratch. That it's character building.
Amen. I love this conversation right here because this is happening in creative writing. Like AI is doing all the writing, so you're losing your ability to think. Do you see that happening? And what would you encourage parents with kids when it comes to creativity? I mean, you're in the creative arts like crazy. We see AI. There's probably a good aspect to it, but there is a huge negative that's coming. And that's it's what we're not going to be able to use our brains anymore. I think there was one study that came out that revealed that those who use AI, their brain literally shuts off.
Well, it shuts off the part that you're using AI for. So if you're using AI for creative writing, then the part of your brain that processes creative writing is going to get lazy, weak, and shrink.
Why would you need it?
Right,
Why would you need it?
Exactly. And that's how our brains are, is that that's why when you're older, it's really important to be doing puzzles and doing things to challenge your brain, because it's just those parts are going to go away. Just like your muscles get weak when you're not lifting heavy things, our brains get weak when we're not lifting anything, I mean, so for those areas, if you're not really engaging with what you're creating, then the brain's like, well, you don't need me, so I'll just take a rest and shrink up here.
And so in knowing that in 2025, you're encouraging your kids to still be creative and use their imaginations and be more tactile and hands-on.
Yes.
You find that very important?
Oh, extremely important. We also don't believe in phones, that will be maybe my daughter's wedding present will be a phone. No, they have.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, she has a flip phone. She's 12, but we don't believe in smartphones to the kids, before they leave the house. We very much limit their screen time, to a very small amount. And what it's done, and we also don't do video games too, but my son loves video games. He's barely played video games, but what he does is he loves Pac-Man, but he's just had to create his own physical Pac-Mans to play Pac-Man. So he's created out of cardboard. He has like this, he's created different versions of Pac-Man, but the one that's the most fun is one you hold in your hand, and it's like a little marble, and you have to get it past the different ghosts, from Pac-Man to the end. But he creates it because we don't let him do the shortcut to these things. So he has to come up with it in his mind and create a more complicated version. And then he grows as a person, his creativity grows. But no, we're all about not doing shortcuts creatively.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you let that, because he obviously knows what Pac-Man is. You
Yes.
you just introduce something for like 10 seconds. You're like, all right, now be creative.
No, I think
This is the general concept.
I think we were taking a trip or something, and then he got to play Pac-Man. And then if we go to Costco and there's a Pac-Man there, he's like, I want to play. So he'll play. He finds all opportunity whenever he can, but he's not in front of the TV for hours playing any games at all, but he just super enjoys it. Like here now and then he'll play something, but we try to keep them away from anything that's the potential to be addictive.
Yeah.
And we've just seen other kids get really addicted to screen time and even to games, and just seen how their personalities can change because of that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's become a toxic babysitter today.
Right, exactly.
And when they cry when they get dropped off the daycare, it's not because they miss moms, because they miss the iPad oftentimes.
Wow.
And talking about brain shrinking, they found that with kids too, that the more screen time they have, the more their brains shrink, especially before age 2.
Wow.
So we were like, no screens before age 2. And you can easily find that information on the internet. But we go places, we see people have iPhones or iPads in front of their babies, and they are just hurting their babies. That is not good at all.
I agree. I totally agree with that. So how would you foster a creative environment in your home then? Allow them to be bored?
Oh, that is extremely key. Yes. Allow them to be bored. I think some of the best ideas, the best creations have come out about because people are bored and have nothing to do. And I think that as parents, it's easy to feel guilty, like, oh, my kid is bored, I must fill that gap for them. But it's the opposite.
I agree.
Because you don't fill the gap, they will fill the gap with something that is going to force their minds to expand and for them to do something creative. And that's a great thing.
That's so good.
Can I be a little bit of a devil's advocate for this?
Sure, yeah.
So let's just say, okay, I'm a parent that I'm not creative. How do I foster? So I just let them be bored and just let them go do their own stuff?
Okay, first of all, lie. You're not creative. Everyone has creative potential in them. But what I've found is that with people who will label themselves as not creative, that at some point in their pasts, they did something that was creative and someone was discouraging about it. And then they just took this lie in that I am not creative. I find that all the time. So we read a book, recently called Creative Confidence. And that was one of the key points that they made, is that we're all creative, except that people can really internally put themselves down because they look at others and they think, well, I'm not as creative as X, so that must mean I'm not creative. So that aside, I mean, there are certainly plenty of things that you can, I think, resources that you can give your kids. I mean, markers, pens, paper, all kinds of construction materials. We look for things that have unlimited play, like not things that, okay, they've done it and it's done, but things that they can use over and over and over.
Like Legos or...
Right, exactly. Anything that's imaginative play that it can be used forever is what we tend to get our kids.
Do you feel like you had that a little more for yourself as a kid? That you just had these elements to be able to build with whatever creatively you would want to build?
I did, yes. It was a combination of having elements, but also putting a limit on the things that I could do. Like, I remember my parents didn't make it easy for me to film when I was growing up. And I remember at one point, I think it was I was doing a film called Attack of the Killer Waffles, which is fantastic. And
when do these get released? When's the next?
I got to see that.
The flower in the HVAC film.
This is awesome.
The Killer Waffles.
So my mom in particular, she was just really tired of me making messes at home from making, these films. So she's like, you can't film here. And so then I had to be resourceful, and I found a neighbor who had a garage, and they let me build the sets, for that particular movie inside their garage. So I just had to be, really creative. So I think that sometimes we think with our kids, we've got to give them access to everything, but sometimes the limits are what force them to be more resourceful.
You put a boundary and then with resources, but stay in the boundary.
Right, exactly. And my mom, she could only take so much. She knew I can't take it anymore. And that's not a bad thing. As a kid, it was discouraging. Of course, you want your parents to be like, whatever you want, but it forced me to then find other solutions and be more resourceful, and then help build my character in the process.
Because that even preps you as an adult that even if you're creating a film, writing or something, you can't do just whatever you want. You have to have certain guidelines, and then you be creative in that.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's really good. That's really good.
And you can see that now with directors whose films are terrible, who have unlimited budgets. You see people like, if you think of Francis Ford Coppola, in his early days, he was very limited on his resources. And so he really had to make things stretch. He had to really think creatively. And then his last film was Megalopolis, I think it was called. And he spent, I don't know, something like $200 million on it of his own money. Yep. There was no one saying no to him in his sphere. No one saying this is not a good script. This is not a good concept, whatever it was. And then he lost hundreds of millions of dollars because of that.
Yeah.
That is such a good point. I think one of the phrases is necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
When you have endless budgets, it's like, we got room to fail. It's like the government. Like, we don't really need to improve.
Right.
Because we'll just take more of their money.
Yeah.
But businesses who have to depend on ingenuity, creativity, better processes do really, really well, because if we don't, we die.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think you do it because you really love it. You really love creativity. You love storytelling. Tell us about that. I know you're obviously into that. Tell the audience what you wrote and some of your films.
Sure. I've made 2 films so far, 2 feature films, and actually a short that was recently re-released. But my first feature film was called In My Sleep, and it is a psychological thriller about a man who believes he may have murdered a good friend while sleepwalking. It's an interesting topic to bring up when I'm staying at someone's house.
That's awesome.
I always have to show them I do not sleepwalk. I do not murder.
They're like locking the door.
No, that's right.
This is a biopic. This is my own life.
Honey, the gun's loaded, right?
Oh man!
So that was my first film.
Is this like a projection of your own subconscious?
Right. Yes. Well, in a way, the main character does Well, I think for most of us, like there are things we do in our lives that we wish, I really wish I hadn't done X, and I feel bad about X. So here he discovers he has a whole life that's happening while he's asleep that is starting to catch up with his actually day-to-day life. And yeah, he's got to face the truth and figure out what the truth is. And so it's a very much a psychological kind of journey that he goes through.
Where can people watch this?
It is on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. It's on YouTube Movies. It's pretty easy to find.
That's really cool. When was that concept born? When was the idea born? And when did you create this movie?
The concept was born originally because I read about this happening to people in reality, that there have been several cases where people, while sleepwalking, ended someone's life.
Wow.
And went to court about it. And some of them were acquitted and others were not acquitted. And I thought, wow, that's a really, really fascinating idea. That's what began the process of writing the story and writing the script, coming out with the movie. I just re-released. The only version you can see now is the director's cut, which just came out last year. I went back and tightened the story and added some things and came up with a director's cut last year.
That's awesome. So you have that released. How long ago was that?
That first came out 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you immediately jump into your next project?
Well, there's a lot. There's always been kind of a lot on my plate. At one point, I had a board game company. I guess I still have the board games that are out. So I created 5 different games that were sold around the world. They're actually still available, but
He's like, have you ever heard of Uno? Have you ever heard of...
Oh, my word.
No, the first game was called You're Pulling My Leg. And I originally created it as a gift for 2 friends who were dating. And so the first version I gave to them as a gift. They eventually got married. But then as friends were playing that game, I realized, I think this could actually be a real game that we sell in stores. So I kept developing it. And eventually it came out. It won a bunch of awards. It was sold in stores all over the world, actually. And then I came out with a junior version of that. I came out with a game called Slapwacky, Pet Detectives, and Jabberjot, which is a creative writing game.
Wow.
So the ones that you can get now are still You're Pulling My Leg, You're Pulling My Leg Junior, and then there's some Pet Detectives and Jabberjots and Slapwackies out there, but it mostly I turned during COVID. I turned You're Pulling My Leg and You're Pulling My Leg Junior into book versions, so people could play them anywhere. Wow. And so they're very much like get to know you games. Yeah, where you get to learn all kinds of things about people that you never knew.
That's really neat. So you don't just move project to project. You have multiple stuff kind of cooking at the same time.
Yes, right.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You're like a mad scientist at night, just the creative mind is going, like creating games and movies and writing books.
Are you one of the guys who go up to like a cabin in the mountains and just lock yourself away for months?
Oh, no. I mean, I have 2 lovely kids and a family. And it was an adjustment. I mean, before I got married, I would go to Disneyland, and that was my primary place of writing. So there were some spots that I loved in particular that I found it very inspiring because everything at Disneyland is surrounding story, and you see stories come to life. And I remember one time I was working on a screenplay on a park bench, and the Mad Hatter and Alice came up and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm working on a script." They're like, "Well, we'll read the script right now." And so they started reading the script, and so it's just so hilarious because the Mad Hatter and Alice are reading my script, and then the Queen of Hearts comes up and they read like a scene, and then the Queen of Hearts like makes a sign of like that was, I didn't like it at all, which is very much her personality. And I said, well, everyone's a critic, but it was just so surreal seeing, that coming to life in front of me. So that's actually primarily where I wrote my book, The Sound of Violet, where it was just such a great atmosphere, creativity. And so that was my first novel that eventually became a film as well.
Was that pretty difficult writing a novel? The Sound of Violet?
It is.
And your first film.
Yeah.
What were some of your biggest obstacles filming your first film and writing The Sound of Violet?
Well, The Sound of Violet, any novel, it felt like a huge obstacle just to write a novel to begin with. Like, it felt very much beyond my grasp when I thought about it to begin with, because screenplays, if you can really bang out a screenplay, if it's not a good screenplay, you can bang it out in like a couple weeks, really, but the magic in screenplays is going back and rewriting, and that can take months or even years. But with a novel, there are so many words, and it's almost like you're creating the movie, but inside people's imaginations. And it's extremely laborious, and it just takes forever. So it's one of those things, though, that I would just always, as a side project, always working on it. And then one day you realize, oh, wow, okay, the first draft is there. And now you have to get beta readers to read it and give you feedback. And then you go back and rewrite it. It's really hard to get people to read your novel, because it's a commitment, I mean, it can take a few days for people to read it. Screenplay is a lot easier. So it's a real challenge.
Were there days it just felt impossible?
Well, I think it's more, I think I tried to look at it like skiing. I remember when I learned how to ski, I first looked at the bottom of the mountain and I thought, it is impossible for me to get to the bottom of that mountain. But then I thought, you know what? I just need to go a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and just go down a little bit at a time. And eventually you're there. So I think writing, or frankly, any of these creative projects, are the same thing. You just want to look at the bottom of the mountain and just think, oh, wow, that I'll never get there. But don't think about that. Just think about the little place you have to go to the right, the left. And that's where it all happens, is in those little moments.
That's really good advice, because what we just touched on with AI and even just computers in general, they make a lot of the work a lot easier. So why wouldn't I just punch in some prompts and let it either write me a screenplay, give me something, give this, instead of taking the time to work myself down the hill? Why wouldn't I just ride the chairlift back down instead of working myself back down? And actually, you're getting to the destination, but you're also learning along the way and building this skill. But why would I do all that work? That's going to take so long. I'm falling so much. People have to help me. I have to ask for help. When I just ride back down and I just punch some stuff in and get it done. That's very intriguing to think about, that, because my kids are growing up in this. I mean, technically we're all in this. It's not just, the kids have to deal with it. We all have to deal with technology. That it is a lot easier to just I'll just take the easiest route for the entire project, instead of using it maybe as a tool or as learning, but I'll just give it the entire project and I'll work on it, because that's a commitment to write anything, to write a short story, to write a book, to even adapt it to a screenplay. That's a commitment. That's like, I'm giving myself to this. I'm pouring into this.
Right.
What's the big difference? Because you wrote this book, the novel, and then you adapt it. What's the difference? Because you're using the language of a novel and screenplay. For those who may not understand even what that is, what's the difference between writing the book and then adapting it?
Well, the screenplay is more of a blueprint. If you think of a blueprint of a house, that tells you how to build the house, but it's all the magic of putting on the roof and the walls and electricity is how the house actually comes together.
It's more structural.
Right. So similarly, your screenplay is your blueprint for the movie or the TV show. And then you bring on teams and teams of people that are experts at production design, costume design, casting. I mean, all those people and all their talent is brought together to actually make it come to life. Whereas in the novel, you have to do all that internally. So everyone, in some ways, that makes it more fun in that sense, is that you can control exactly what people are experiencing and seeing as you're describing it and as you're writing it out. But what's interesting is that when you do the other route with a film, you are bringing in people that might see it differently than you and bring in a whole dimension that you had not thought of before, and bring a depth to it or an experience to it that takes it places that you didn't anticipate, because it was me in that room before.
That's a really good answer. How do you determine whether a story is worth producing? What about it makes it like so motivating?
Yeah,
to
good
like,
question.
We gotta film that.
To me, I have to think of, it takes so long to make a movie, start to finish, that you think, what is the thing that I'm not going to get sick of as I'm looking at this 1,000 times over multiple years?
That's good.
I mean, you're going to be reading it. You're going to be looking at it. I mean, forever. And so if it's something that you're not passionate about, it's just going to be a nightmare.
That is a great answer.
That really is, because even
I never thought about that.
you said you went back to the first project, the first
Yeah.
movie, and you recut it, did a director's cut.
Yeah.
This is the 10th anniversary of the book.
Right.
So did you do anything with you? Did you go back into that book and mess with that for the?
I did, for the 10th
Okay.
anniversary. Yeah.
So
It was kind of the last couple of years I went back and redid all my projects, because I'd mentioned I did a short called Harlem Grace.
Okay.
It was a finalist at the Student Academy Awards when I was at NYU. It was based on a true story about a man who graduates from Harvard Law School and moves to Harlem to start a homeless shelter. And we were coming upon one of the anniversaries for it. I can't remember, but the subject went on to write multiple books and is a really good guy. And so I went back into the footage and kind of enhanced it, retransferred, because it was shot on film, retransferred the footage, recolorized it, redid the sound, and then re-released it a couple of years ago. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of people have seen that short now. It's a very inspiring short, because you see this man who decides to leave the cush world that he comes from, which is Harvard, and he comes from a privileged background, and he decides to just put it aside to invest in these men's lives in Harlem in the 1980s, when especially black men were not being invested in, and this is in the middle of the drug epidemic that was happening in Harlem at the time. And so it's still a relevant story today. So after I created the new version, we did a bit of a tour in some cities where we showed it. And then Joe Holland, who the film is based on, talked, about his journey. And it was just a really inspiring, really great time. But then after that, I did the director's cut of In My Sleep. And then I went back and did the 10th anniversary for the book too. So it was, as I'm getting ready to do my next project, I first kind of looked back and thought, how could I make these relevant for today? Even with In My Sleep, the director's cut, I took out things that kind of date. I wanted to make it more evergreen. And the one thing that dates films is the technology. Yeah. So the phones they had, exactly. So, now they all have iPhones.
Nice.
So you look at the film and you can't tell when it is. It seems like matter of fact, people thought we had shot it very recently, but we hadn't. But I wanted to, because I thought the story was still very much relevant and still interesting and gripping. So I wanted to kind of change it for today's audience. Yeah.
What part of the story's archetypes or redemption inspire you the most? Like what wakes you up every morning and keeps you motivated when it comes to storytelling?
Well, to me, it's really important that the story connects with me emotionally, that I feel very much moved in that way. And then I think the archetype of the most successful films of all time do have that redemption narrative where, this story has, at the beginning, there's usually about 10 minutes in, there's a big change that happens to the main character. Like they're going one way and oops, something big happened and they're going into another direction. And then this is very standard for movies. And then about 30 minutes in, a new character is introduced, into their lives that takes them in a new direction. And then they go through a journey. And then at the end of that journey, like all is lost. Like there's just no way it's going to work out for whatever situation they're in.
Yeah.
It's a dead end, awful. And then there's usually some kind of sacrifice where some character has to give up themselves for the greater good, to save others. And then that person does that. And then things turn around and miraculously things are happy, at the end.
Why are we all drawn to that?
Yeah.
Like we're all drawn to that story. And it's like almost every movie we watch.
Yeah. Well, even, thinking back in the history of the early comics, like Superman, the writers were Jewish, but they were realizing that the Christian narrative of Jesus Christ and his resurrection, that is what really had a grip on people. So even when they created Superman, the idea was that, he is an archetype for Jesus, that he's just a representative for Jesus. So I think that the reason these stories connect so deeply with us is because there is like a story of stories that all of these echo, they're all shadows of the greater story that I think we can be part of. This is, if you look at who Jesus claimed to be, he claimed to be God, and he died, he was resurrected. If that's true, it just changes everything. And I believe it is true. But for me, it's important not just to think it's true, but to look at the evidence for it being true. So it's not just like, I feel like it's true, but would it, like, did this actually happen? And as I've looked at it, I've come to the conclusion, I think it did. Yeah. And the fact that it did happen just changes everything. Yeah. And so when you look at these stories, like, everyone has changed. Like, usually for most films, I would say 90% of films in film school, they teach you that whoever the character is at the beginning needs to be different at the end. They change. The whole film or TV show, whatever it is, they transform from beginning to end. So why are we so attracted to that? Are we meant to change? Are we meant to transform? And then does that transformation happen because someone has given up their lives for us? I think so. Yeah.
That is the epic story of Christ. Good. Just resonates with us. But even when I sit in a movie theater and I watch someone, as you said it just at the beginning of that, of sacrificing some part of themselves for someone else, the greater good, for maybe it's their immediate community, there's something that resonates in me. And I'm like, man, I want to be that person. Because sometimes, unfortunately, what the bad guy is doing resonates with me. I'm like, man, I'm kind of the jerk. I'm kind of the person who puts people down, but I want the protagonist. I want that to reflect in my life. So I'll walk out of a movie theater like, okay, let's kind of adopting that in my mind. But then when you see that it is a picture of, as you said, the story of stories, that just makes so much sense why it resonates with us.
Right.
We want to be different. We don't want to be the antagonist in the movie. We want to be the protagonist. We want to be the good guy. But for us to do that, there has to be a change that happens.
Yeah.
That's really good. Can I ask a question? So a lot of people, they read a book, they fall in love with a book, and then someone adapts that to film, and they may get upset with it because it's not the same as they see in their mind's eye of how it should be played out. Was it difficult for you to be the person who creates this story, to have it as a book, as a novel, to adapt it? Was it kind of releasing a little bit of like, hey, whoever, maybe it's an actor, maybe it's whoever is involved with this, they're going to have their own take on this story that I've had in my mind for so long. Was that difficult at all? Or was it enjoyable to see it come to life?
Well, it was a challenge because of the resources that I had to create the film. So I was living in Seattle at the time, and the book takes place in New York City. So I changed the location to Seattle. And then you run into things like at the beginning of the book and the movie, you see the main character on a series of dates. And you see that the dates do not go as he hoped they would go. They're a little awkward. And in the movie, when we're getting ready to shoot the movie, we were dealing with a low budget for the movie. And I realized in the budgeting process that we were shooting this as a SAG film. So the Screen Actors Guild determines the rates that the actors are paid. And every time an actor opens their mouth, if it's one word or multiple words, they are paid about $350 and a percentage of whatever the film makes forever. Wow. So with that in mind, I thought, okay, how can I film this dating scene without the women talking, because I can't afford it. So I rewrote it so that it's just him talking and it's super awkward. So he's talking, you see the dates, and it works for the movie, but it's not a direct, I mean, in the book, you get much more details about what happens and the funny things that are said back and forth. So there are, kind of compromises that you need to make because of that, and the change of location as well. But ultimately, I try to do everything that serves the story. Yeah. But there were also some things like there is a scene where the main character gets into a fight with someone, and to film that in public in Seattle, we would have had to have hired police officers to look after the scene and maybe cordoned off the street. And again, lots of money to do that. So I just relocated it inside and took away some of the weapons that were originally part of the story. So it's, I just had to be creative about how I adapted it. But the core of the story is there. Yeah. But it's a very different experience reading the novel versus watching the movie. In the novel, I'm able to go much more in depth in terms of the character's point of view, what they experience, what they go through. In some ways, it's more emotional, whereas the movie is, you get the whole story, but it's in a much shorter time frame, in a much different experience.
I've always experienced that when I read a book and then I watch the movie, is I know what they're thinking or feeling, even though maybe they don't act that out, because I saw that in the book or read it in the book. It was really great. Are there some things that, what are some things that the listeners don't understand about film producing? Because most people aren't film producers. Maybe some misconceptions or things that you're like, man, people don't really understand.
Yeah, it's funny because when I talk to other filmmakers, we always say to ourselves, like, it's a miracle that any movie gets made, because it's basically like planning a wedding every day for like a month or two. Like,
that makes sense.
Yeah, if you remember all the details that go into your wedding, except way more guests and way more logistics involved. Oh my. So it kind of gives you a sense of what goes into a film, and it just takes a lot to get a film off the ground. And then not only filming the movie, but then actually going through post-production and getting it seen by people is a whole other process. I remember with both films, I would talk to actors who said, oh, I'm so glad this eventually made it to the screen. And they've just been involved with films that they stopped working on it. They just went away. And these are films with bigger budgets, but they just either run out of resources or energy, and they just stop making the film. It's the craziest thing. That's not my personality is I'm going to finish it. So persevere. That's not even, I know, because my parents didn't let me film in their house growing up. So I developed that character. But it's any film you see, a lot of work went into that film.
Well, that's something you see that thread throughout your life of the creativity, no matter the limitations, that even as the question of the book to adapting to film, that you had to get creative with some of that. And it doesn't sound like it, obviously, we're about to watch it tonight, that it didn't stop you at all. You're like, okay, well, let's shift this a little bit. And you see that creativity even coming out just in those decisions. Okay, how can we tell the story still, but just be creative, do it just a little bit different.
Right. Yes.
That's really neat.
Yes. I remember as we were filming The Sound of Violet in Seattle, the budget was extremely tight, and we had I mean, as you'll see, we had multiple locations and hundreds of extras on this film. And one of the biggest expenses for extras is feeding them, because you usually are spending between on a low end, between $5 and $15 per person per day that you have. So it just quickly adds up. And I remember looking at the budget and just realizing, wow, we cannot afford these extras. And then I got this idea, you know what? Why don't we just have people bring their own lunches? And people were so enthused about the story and what we're doing that people didn't mind. And people did. And I was able to take that off the budget because we just could not afford it. And people brought their own lunches. They were there and they were extras in the different scenes that we did. And they were part of something that was really special to them. But you just have to be inventive and think differently.
Yeah. That's
think
really
different. Good. I might be onto something.
Are there any films that you're that are in the works right now? That's something in the future that you're allowed to talk about right now, or is that kind of?
The way I work is that until the script is completely finished and ready to go, I can't really talk about it, because
that makes sense.
Once I talk about it, the creative energy for it gets outside my head, and then it just drains. And then someone will maybe say something. I'll be like, oh, okay, that's, I guess, a good idea. And then you think, oh, whoa, that was not, maybe it's not a good idea. It's kind of like thinking your baby can run, It's like, it's not ready to run yet. So it's not grown up enough.
That's great advice, especially somebody who's finally got the itch to write a book or to, do something crazy, start school at a later age. Maybe just, you'd advise them to maybe just sit on that until they got the money, or they start the classes,
or at least they finish that.
Or at least,
so I've even heard it down into the small of even new habits that you're going to create. As soon as you start telling people that you're not holding yourself accountable anymore, there's the psychology of, I'm not going to hold myself accountable. Other people will do it now. It's like, or if they even like the idea, hey, I'm going to start doing this exercise or doing this thing. And everyone's like, why are you doing that? Okay, well, why would I do that if no one else likes it?
Exactly.
Instead of just doing it, getting in that rhythm, getting it done, getting it accomplished. So that's how you like to work. Is I like to be at Disneyland with the Mad Hatter, writing this stuff out and finish something out, and then I'll discuss it with people, because then they can knock it, but it's already done.
Right. And then it's really important to get feedback. I mean, I'm super big on feedback with both the script stage and in the film stage. I'll show it to test audiences and get their feedback, because I feel like I either hear it now or hear it later. And sometimes people are really sensitive and they don't like hearing criticism. And I get this when people ask me to read their screenplays. Most often people just want me to tell them how brilliant it is.
Yeah.
People do not want actual criticism, but that's the only way you're going to grow and make things better.
Yeah.
What attribute does a human being have to have in order to receive that type of constructive criticism? Or, and I think we all know what that is, but like, how important is this attribute in order to grow as a human being or in any career that you have? Like, what do you think that is?
The mysterious attribute?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think that you have to have a firm foundation other than yourself. I mean, I think that for me personally, I have to think of what God thinks of me first before I think of what others think of me. And I have to rest in that so that when someone gives me feedback on something, I don't think it's about me. It's just about something I've produced,
It's nothing personal.
Right. Exactly. It's hard because that's an extension of what you're doing personally, but
it's not your identity.
Right. Exactly. I remember listening to a podcast with the writer, Craig Mazin, and I think it was the movie Identity Theft came out with Melissa McCarthy, and the reviews were terrible. And he was so depressed. For days, he didn't come out of bed because of that. Wow. And he talked about it. And I really appreciated his vulnerability in talking about how devastating it was for him. At the same time, I thought, I wish he had an identity rooted in what Jesus thinks of him. He's an atheist, and I've sent him some books about who Jesus is, hoping he'll, kind of pick up on it. But, if it's just about you, then of course you're going to be depressed when people crush on whatever that thing is that you produce, or you'll be super defensive because it's just you. It's just what you think of yourself. So you've got to manage what others think about you. Your success all comes down to you and what you're doing. And that's just exhausting. To me, I'm very thankful that I can rest in being just a child of God.
Wow.
And that helps me to be able to move forward.
I love what you're saying so much.
Yeah.
Because it's like my value or worth is not wrapped up in somebody's opinion. It's in God, who doesn't change.
Right.
And he's the only one in our life who loves us for who we are. Yeah. Not for what we do or what we produce or how well we're acting. Yeah. He just loves us for us. So there's nothing in our past that'll make God love us less. And there's nothing we could do today or tomorrow that's going to make him love us more.
Yeah.
It's like foundational. So then when you do receive criticism constructively, or somebody has a different angle, you don't take it so personal. You're like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. I never thought about that. And it's like, you can walk courageously and humbly all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, because
exactly.
And the problem with having your identity in what you do or in what you have is when you lose those things, you lose yourself completely.
Right. And it could be your kids. Your identity could be in your kids.
Yes.
And then if they don't perform the way you want or they embarrass you, you're just completely crushed.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to look at it the reverse way. Like, why was I so crushed by whatever happened? Like, oh my gosh, I'm getting my identity from that thing, instead of God. And there's a Christmas song, I think it's Frosty the Snowman. I can't remember, but one of the lines is that we're all children of God. And I'm like, we're not. We're creations of God. But, in the book of John, it talks about how we become children of God by putting our faith in him.
Amen.
So, because some people be like, well, aren't we all children of God? No. It's just like some random person off the street is not my child. I know who my children are. And in the same way, you're not born as a child of God, you're a creation of God, but becoming a child of God is a whole thing of putting your faith in Jesus and asking him for his forgiveness and coming into the relationship with him.
Amen.
So that's really what roots us in a completely new identity.
How much of your faith shapes your creativity and writing and film directing and all that and everyday life? Is that really important to you?
Well, it's kind of like asking me how much my body depends on my breathing.
Dude, this is so good.
That's really good.
I kind of asked the most obvious question.
So,
because I think a lot of people listening aren't integrating their faith in what they do. Because they may be truck drivers or nurses and doctors or, we have professionals here that are listening that they haven't learned to integrate their faith in what they do yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. See separate things that are happening.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. Well, I remember something that really stuck with me when I was a kid. I went to this department store with my dad, and he was shopping for my mom to get her a gift for Christmas. And he chose these earrings for her. And I said, how do you know that she'll like those earrings? And he said, because I know your mom. I know what she likes. And I think similarly, integrating our faith has to do with knowing who Jesus is so that the decisions we make just naturally come out of that relationship. And so to me, because you also hear the words like secular versus sacred. And to me, everything is sacred.
Amen.
Like everything is rooted in our spiritual identity, from the smallest things that we do to the grandiose things. They all come back to that identity. So I think, to me, it's more than integrating faith. It's more just like living your faith. It's more like getting to know the God who loves you so much, who gave himself up for you to know him and to live a life out for him. So, for the truck driver or the nurse, like maybe that means incorporating prayer more, maybe that means being more prayerful and in what you're doing and the way you're spending your time. I mean, it's kind of different for each person, but I think of the scripture verse that says, like, does the thumb say to the eye, like, I don't need you? You know, what would it be like if the whole body was an eye? You know, it'd be pretty silly. But in the same way, we all, if you're a child of God, like, everyone has a different part that they're playing, and no one part is more important than the other, but we all are part of the same body. And so we, need to figure out, what does that look like to be part of that body?
Yeah. I think a lot of people struggle because they don't see their work as a spiritual thing. They struggle with that. They're like, I just feel like my job has no eternal value to it. But I think it can if you have an eternal perspective in what you do. First of all, providing for your family is a very spiritual thing. And of course, your testimony that you have with your coworkers and the people you interact with are extremely important in having an eternal impact. Really quick, I have a question about filmmaking. I kind of pivot here a little bit. How do you, when you're choosing actors, is that you?
Well, the way it works is that you have a casting director and they go out and try to find the best choices for you. So they can narrow it down. They can show you what they think are your top, like maybe 10 choices for a particular role. As a director, you can choose to look at everything. It's just up to you. So I remember with In My Sleep, Alyssa Weisberg was our casting director, and she did the casting for most of J.J. Abrams' movies, the Star Trek, when he did Force Awakens. She was just absolutely top notch, and she would initially show me videos of people usually reading for the part, and then we would bring them in to narrow down, the pool. And then ultimately you do something called chemistry reads, which if they are interacting with the main character, that you have them read with that character and you see how that goes. You record them, see how that looks on tape. It's pretty laborious process.
That sounds like it. Is there anything about their personal character that actually plays a role in you deciding that they would take that part?
Well, usually people's reputations precede them. So usually part of a casting director's...
you call each other? You're like, how was it working with so-and-so?
The casting director does.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So they all talk among each other.
Gotcha.
And so what you're
there's
trying
a reputation
to do,
there.
there's definitely a reputation. And what you're trying to do is create a cast of people that would be friends together, really.
I love that.
And I mean, that's your hope. But sometimes, I mean, when you're dealing with very A-list people, they're not coming in for, to read it. And it kind of depends on the actor too. Like some people, like even Meryl Streep, like she'll be willing to come in and read with another actor. But some actors are like, nope, I just need my offer and I'll accept it or not, accept it. There were some actors that I met with that's called offer only. And you make an offer and you can never see them read. And some actors are not good auditioners. Like Dustin Hoffman is known for being a terrible person to read for something, and he's brilliant, on screen. So part of it is looking at the body of work that those actors have accomplished and really judging it off of them. And then you get together with them to see, do I like this person? Am I having an easy conversation with them? And you kind of figure that, and they're actually figuring that out from their end too. Like, do I like this director? Do I want to spend time with this person? So it really goes both ways.
Yeah.
I love it.
Judge Judy. Judge Judy at 5:00. That's Dustin Hoffman in The Rain Man.
Oh, that's what he says.
Come on, guys. Come on, man.
I thought you were saying you had to go watch Judge Judy at 5:00.
At 5:00.
Said Rain Man farted. Rain Man farted.
Well, it went way over my head.
That was way over all of our heads. If you got that, please make a comment. Please leave a comment.
You may edit that out.
Not at all. So we're about to screen The Sound of Violet here. How can people find you, support you? How can they support your work? I know you mentioned even with your first movie where they could possibly watch that. Can you plug that again for yourself?
Oh, sure. Right. If you go to, there are a lot of websites you can go to. One is morningstarpictures.com,
Okay.
which showcases all my 3 films. There are links to see all 3 films there. If you go to thesoundofviolet.com, and I have to say violet like the color, because people always think I'm saying the sound of violence, and it's not that.
It's a rom-com. You're going to love it.
The Sound of Violence. Thesoundofviolet.com. And you can get links to the book there. The book came out, the 10-year anniversary edition came out very recently. It's been getting great reviews, which has been super encouraging.
Awesome.
But you can get links to the book. There's an audiobook available as well and on Audible. The music from the movie, our composer did this gorgeous score with a 60-piece orchestra.
Amazing.
That's featured in the audiobook as well. And then all the movies you can get there as well. And you can also reach me through the websites too.
Wow.
And also I host a podcast called Navigating Hollywood, where I interview people who've been successful in Hollywood about their career journeys and their spiritual journeys. So you can experience that at navigatinghollywood.org.
Wow. It's inspiring, just all that you've done and that you continue to do, but it's also inspiring of how you're taking your faith and it's helping shape what you're creating. So that's why I say wow of just all that's there, but then knowing your heart behind it as well. Some people would look at it as just a glamorous life of, Hollywood and creating these things. But just hearing this conversation, just the work that's behind it, getting down the hill and the skis behind it is so inspiring to myself. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad. I think it was Nicole Kidman who said 10% of her job is glamour.
Wow.
The other 90% is just a lot of hard work.
Yeah. Hard work. Yeah,
that's right too. I would say 1% of my life is glamour. If not a negative percentage.
Well, we appreciate your creativity.
Oh, thank you.
And how your faith flows through that.
Oh, thanks.
And we get to enjoy how God has made you and these films in the book. Excited to watch your The Sound of Violet tonight.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.